I wanted to do another truck, and I had this Matchbox 56 Ford. And then I thought, I want to make it a Redline. So that's what I'm going to do. It's not a bad looking little truck. It's a nice casting. I have worked with it before. I can't remember what I did with it. But I know it might have been one of the 3 blind mice builds. I don't recall. But took this one apart. It fought me a little bit. I'm not quite sure why. And I was thinking on this that the front grille was a separate piece, and it's not. So I could be getting this casting confused with another one. And you may see the glass has a rivet holding it in as well. So I had to drill that out. And that always makes me a little nervous when it's kind of tight in there. But got the glass out with a little persuasion. This is a brand new casting, so it's a nice place to start. And this was fun. I drilled right through this thing intentionally. And it was an oddly good feeling rather than worrying about that stupid little post below the bed. See, I'm going to slam this thing down to the ground, and I'm putting a tonneau cover in the back so you don't see how much of those wheel wells I have to cut into the bed of the truck. And so then even tapping this was fun because, it's this short little post, but I've drilled it all the way through. So you just tap it and start spinning, and when you put the screw on it, it actually comes up into the bed. It's like your worst nightmare if you were trying not to do that. But it's so much fun when you actually can just drill it and not worry about it. Yeah, maybe I'm a little goofy, but it was a relief. The casting did have quite a few areas that needed some work. So got it all cleaned up. And you can see it's a nice looking little truck. Again, this is a Matchbox I'm turning into a Redline. I wanted to put those large Redline wheels, both front and back. So obviously I had to get out the Dremel tool off camera, cut into the bed of this thing, make room for the wheels back there. And then I also had to make room on the plastic base. So yeah, there you see, I just put it under the truck and used the truck to hold it and sanded the crap out of it. Pretty much sanded it smooth. I did have to reinforce it with some styrene on the inside because I'm also going to, like I just mentioned, cut into that base to make room for the wheels. I just thought this thing would look good slammed down with red lines on it. The sanding sticks come in really handy for this kind of thing. I got, Lord knows how many of these things. I bought them off Amazon quite a while back, and it seems like you buy it and you don't only get one pouch, you get like 4 pouches of these things. So there you see me dropping the wheels in the front. I did have to, again off camera, make even the front wheel wells a little bit larger on the inside. I did make my own 3D bearings, as you saw in an earlier video. I did have to drill them out a little bit because I used the axles off of the original Matchbox wheels. But beyond that, it's a pretty simple process. It's a straight axle, and there's not a whole lot to those bearings. I did cut out the part where the first time I tried to do that, it shot off the end of that pliers there, and took me a while to find out where the things flew in the room. Just had to force the bearing in there, and that's basically what I have in mind. I did have to, even at this point, I did clean those out a little bit more with the Dremel tool on the inside just to give me a little bit more room. There's the look I was going for. I did wet sand the heck out of it, and then off camera I also brought this thing up to a really high polish. I knew I wanted to hit it with metal cast paint, and I'm not sure why I was getting low on Metalcast yellow and getting low on Metalcast purple, so I thought, well, I'll use those two. So I hit it with yellow first, then hit it with the Metalcast purple over it, and the result was kind of interesting. You'll see it later. But there's what I used, and then, I went with my usual Minwax polyurethane over it all when it was finished. But it ended up coming out in a nice wine color. Even though the glass was new, I did hit it with gauzy, gauzy, gauzy. I was a little concerned about the thickness of the gauzy, since this thing does have to fit on that post. And obviously this isn't like a post you drill in the top. I ended up just using that resin adhesive to hold it in place, but you'll see that a little later. There's Model Master Metallizer Lacquer. It's aluminum plate, and the glare is kind of tough there, but it's a buffing metallizer. So after spraying it, I kind of buff it off, and you can see it. Some of it comes off, but I really like the end result. This is pretty close also with Rub and Buff that I used in an earlier video. But I'm really happy with the results. I think it looks a lot like an original Hot Wheels metal base, which is the look I was after. I did get out some Army Painter paints because I had a problem. I wasn't sure how much detail I wanted to do. If it had been like an original Redline, there wouldn't have been much detail at all. But I wanted a little bit more detail than that, so I mixed up kind of a very slight pale, a slight blue tint to a white. That's all I did there. So I did that on the headlights. I had hit that base after I had rubbed the base down. I did hit it with a clear coat. So these white headlights are painted over that clear coat on the base. And then I did go over the headlights once they dried with micro crystal clear that you see there, which I really like doing because it gives it just an added realism to the headlights. It's, as I mentioned before, it kind of looks like Elmer's glue going on, but it's a clear coat. And it just makes it look a little bit more realistic. It's the same stuff I've used for windows before. There you see what the yellow base coat of the metal cast, and then with a red metal cast over it, it gave me this really nice looking wine color that I'm thrilled with. And hit the backlights with the Sharpie. And then I started working on the tonneau cover. I had an extra casting of this particular car, so I used it. I didn't want to screw up the paint on the other one, so I used it as the master I could use to design the tonneau cover from. So I just cut that and wanted to make it fit to size. Took a little sanding. And then I made, basically, I took square tubing and made little stands. Just 4 of them. Just stuck them in the 4 corners of that piece of plastic, that piece of styrene. And I wanted it just to snugly fit in there. If I had to, I figured I could glue that tonneau cover in place. I was hoping it wouldn't need to. But it was a nice snug fit on this particular truck, and hoping that it was identical to the other truck. I figured I'd be okay. Once the silver on the taillights dried, I did go over those with Tamiya Gloss Clear Red, just to kind of finish them off. Left the top of the taillights a little silver. And about the only other detailing I did to this was the steering wheel. I didn't do anything fancy on the interior. It did have a nice steering wheel already on it, So I just took out the silver Sharpie and went over that just to jazz it up a little bit. So, this is a pretty straightforward build. And, I don't do enough trucks. I don't do enough imports. I don't do enough of a lot of different things. I did go over the tonneau cover with tire black, just to give it and I did just brush it on, as you see here. I just wanted to give it a little bit more realistic look, and for some stupid reason, I wanted to paint those little supports that I stuck on there, even though you're not going to see them. But I thought this gave the tonneau cover a more realistic look. So now it's time to throw all the pieces together. I'm really happy with that wine color. Honestly, I wasn't sure what color it was going to turn out. I expected it to be a lot more purple. So the fact that that yellow Metalcast paint really lightened up the purple and gave it almost a reddish tint, I'm thrilled with that. So just pop the glass in there, and there you see me with the resin pin. I just put a little tiny bit on there because it really is a snug fit. But just drop a little tiny bit of resin, and you hit it with UV light here. Yeah, there you go. And that now it's ready to go. So I'd like to thank you for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed this build. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, and I've noticed that it's almost 50-50. The people who watch these videos, about half of them have subscribed and half of them haven't. So if you haven't yet, please consider it. That way you won't miss any of these exciting videos. There you can see how I notched the base. That gives you a better look at it. It's so nice not to have to worry about that little short post in the back, knowing that I could actually use these. These are actually pretty long screws. The front post is a really long post, so it was no problem. Snug it up a little bit more. And then again, the tonneau cover on the back is just pressed to fit. It did work perfectly in the back as I hoped. Just pressed it in there and had to give it the shake test just to be sure that I wouldn't need to put an adhesive of some kind, and I didn't. And even though this thing is slammed down about as low as you're going to get it, it does roll. So there's where we started. I don't know, I don't find that particularly attractive. I don't know, the color just doesn't work for me. It seems like it's a casting with so much potential, and they just... Matchbox kind of dropped the ball. So, heck, let's slam it and turn it into a red wine. A pseudo red wine. So there you have it. There are some glamour shots coming up after this. Again, I'd like to thank you for watching this video. If you have any comments, please feel free to leave them down below. And I read all the comments and try and respond to all of them. I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out. I don't slam a lot of things down like this, so this was fun. Now on to the glamour shots. I'd like to take a moment, too, to thank my Patreon members for their support. You make these things possible. Thank you very much. And everybody stay safe and healthy out there. Catch you in the next video.